Hello, Keith Rucker here at VintageMachinery.org. Well, guys, it's happened again. Keith's home for wayward, neglected, and abused machines has adopted a new family member. We have brought in this Carlton Radial Drill, and I'm pretty excited about it. This is something I've known about now for a couple of weeks, and we finally got it moved into the shop, and it is here. And it's ready to start messing with a little bit. Hopefully, here before long, we can try to get this thing running and see what all she needs to be in tip-top shape again. So a little story on this. Actually, a viewer of mine who I've had a chance to meet up with a couple of times runs a machine shop over in Phoenix City, Alabama. And as I pass through that area, I'll stop in from time to time and check on him. Well, he gave me a call a couple of weeks ago, and there was a gentleman over in Columbus, Georgia, who recently purchased an old building. It was an old factory building, and they are not going to be using it for a factory. They're kind of more in the storage business, and they were needing to free up some space in this building that was occupied by some machinery that was left behind. I actually posted some pictures of some other machines on my Facebook page, and we were successful in finding homes for almost all of those machines, I do believe. But this was there, and when I went in there and looked at it, I kind of fell in love with this little thing. A radial drill is something that I've kind of had on my back of my mind as being a machine that I wouldn't mind having for some time now. I've got a couple of friends that have them. These things are really good. If you've got to ever drill a hole in a really big part, the nice thing about this is you can get your part up on this table or sit down on the floor or whatever, but instead of having to move a big part around to get the drill where it needs to be, you move the drill around, and you can really fine-tune these things and dial in exactly where you need for something to be, and you drill a hole in here. These machines are set up, you got a regular quill like a drill press, and that's got a Morse taper in. I hadn't knocked it out. It looks like a number 5 Morse. Looks like there's a sleeve in there. I think that's a number 5 Morse taper in there. I haven't played with this much at all yet. But you can also engage these, and it will actually have power down feed. You have lots of different feeds and speeds that you can put on this. So in addition to being just a big drill, you can put a boring head in here and do some boring in this as well. But anyway, it's a nice machine to have. The interesting thing about this one is it says Carlton 4 foot, so you got a 4-foot arm on it. 9-inch column, that's the size of the column here, LD. This is the light duty model. Yeah. And actually, looking at some of the literature, I was talking with Brian Block, who I'm sure many of you guys follow. Brian's got a big Carlton, much bigger than this one, which he recently had a little mishap with. Go check out his channel if you want to see something scary. But we were looking this thing up, and this is actually not the smallest one they made, but it was, I think, next to the smallest one of these radial drills that Carlton made. And they made these things that were just absolutely monsters. I mean, they were huge. This one here, for what I'll need, it's going to be a really nice size to have, I think. It's small enough that I can fit it in the shop and use it out here, but yet it's still not big enough that it's going to just take up too much real estate. It's still going to take up a chunk of real estate, but I think it's going to be worth it. So anyway, let's do a walk around and kind of show you a little bit about this machine. So I haven't really had any time to spend really learning this machine yet, but just from what I can tell so far, some of the controls and stuff on here. You got this lever down here, and it's kind of interesting. It's hooked up to a drum switch on the back. I'll show you a picture of that, probably overlaid in here where you can kind of see it. My drum switch looks like it took a little hit, and I may have to replace it or repair it or something, but basically you have a forward, neutral, and reverse in here to turn the spindle on. Showed you a minute ago, this is the quill that feeds down. You can see the drill bit going down below here. And in normal mode here, you can just use it like a quill on a drill press and do it by hand. You can also pull those in. That engages the feed, and you see now it's locked in. It's kind of a neat setup here because there's a scale around this thing in inches. So if you're drilling a hole, you can actually just direct read off of your scale here how deep you've drilled, which is kind of neat. There's also some stops I think you can put on this thing so that if you're doing a production job or something where you're repeating it over and over again, where it'll go to a certain stop place and it'll just pop out of gear. So down here, this has got to do with the speeds on the machine. So the speeds are going to be how fast the spindle is turning. And looks like there's adjustments. Low end, there's a 100. I think that's the lowest one I see. 145, 350, 505, 715, 990, 1425, 2000. There's a 200 in there. I think I may have missed that one. So nice range of speeds in here. And then up here, you got a little selector, and this is going to be your feed rate. And it's got a 6, 15, 11, and 20. I'm guessing that's in inches per minute, maybe. I'm not 100% sure. We're going to have to figure that out. So over here, you got a big hand wheel, and it's kind of tight, but you see that's actually moving this whole head back and forth, so you can fine tune this. This hand wheel here has got to do with the feed going down. I think this hand wheel will turn, and you can, I'm not exactly sure how that works, but it's set up, I think, similar to a milling machine. And I believe this is a lock here to lock this table going back and forth. So you got a lot of adjustments there that you can make with it. So back here on the column, we also have a couple of locks here. This one here, and I got all this stuff tightened down really tight right now from when we were transporting it. I wasn't relying on these. We actually tightened the bolts in. So I can't loosen it up right now without getting some wrenches and whatever. But if this one here, you lock it and unlock it, and this allows the whole head to swivel side to side. So you can unlock this and you just kind of push it, and it will swivel back and forth. You got another lock here, and that's for the height on this column. And there's a big screw back here on the back. It's actually motor powered. Haven't really quite figured out how to make it go up and down yet. I may be missing a drum switch back here. This looks like a drum switch that doesn't have a drum on it. I'm not sure. I'm gonna have to work all that out. But it does have power assist going up and down, so you can go feed up, feed down. And I don't know, this thing's, it's probably 8 foot tall, I'm guessing. I haven't measured it. But it's pretty tall, so you got a pretty good stroke in there you can get. It's got a nice big cast iron table down here in the bottom. Now, Carlton had a couple of different options on this. This one here has just got a flat table on the top. You also have a square table that you can bolt something to the side of this if you want to mount it on, straight up and down or something like that, or if you got a big part that you want to come in here, this is square. So you got two faces, a top and a side, that's got the T-slots in that you can bolt to. Now, Carlton also offered as an option, and unfortunately this one doesn't have it, but they had a tilting tabletop. So it was kind of on a little trunnion thing that you could rotate and get whatever angle you wanted. Don't have that on this one, but this is going to be fine for the vast majority of things I need. And if you need to, you can actually take this table completely off. It's just bolted down to the bottom. You can move it around. You can reconfigure it however you need to. But you can also mount parts directly to the floor if you got bigger castings or bigger parts that you need to put in here. So you can remove this and just work off of the floor if need be. So as far as known issues with this, and again, until I get it powered up, I'm really not going to have a really good idea of what it needs. I was told that this machine was running when they took it out of service, but that's what you always hear. I don't know what to believe or what not to believe, but I'm hopeful that this machine was actually operational. But right here, there's a sight glass. This is actually the oil fill level, and the glass is busted out. I noticed when we were moving this, it was tilting around. We actually slung it using a bridge crane at the factory where we got it from. And no, I didn't get any video of that. Sorry, guys. But it was tilting around. We were actually getting some oil leaking out of this as it kind of tilted down. So I do know there's a little bit of oil in here, but going to have to replace this glass in here, not a big deal to do. I've done it on other machines before, and we're going to probably need to flush out the whole case and, of course, put new fluids and stuff in this thing. There's another glass up here on the top. You can't see it. I'm probably just go ahead and replace it as well. It's kind of frosted over where you can't see through it, but at least it's there. And that one, you should be able to see the oil pumping through when it's pumping to make sure you got circulation going on. So back here on the back, there's your motor starter. There's actually two motor starters in here. There's one for the main motor, which is right here, and it's connected to a drum switch, and that drum switch will reverse the motor direction. There's a second motor starter that goes to the motor that goes up and down on the raises and lowers the whole column here. And I've got to figure out how to get all that stuff wired up and working. Right now, the starter itself looks like it's in decent shape, but it's kind of a rat's nest in here. We got some cut wires, so I'm gonna have to figure out what goes where and hopefully be able to get this thing diagnosed and figured out. Unfortunately, the covers are off right now. They were off when I got it, but the covers were there. I got the covers for both of these boxes, so we can salvage those, put them back on. The motor up here, it is a dual voltage, it's high and low voltage. I haven't pulled this off yet to see if it's on 220 or 440. I suspect it's probably on 440 volts, just looking at the building that it came out of, but that's easy enough. We can swap some leads around and get that turned around, and I may have to fool with some heaters or something in here to get all this working, but again, I've got to get all this figured out, but it shouldn't be a major problem here. I think that what's in here is good for the most part. This drum switch does have an issue. It's broken. I may have to replace that, but other than that, I think it's in decent shape. Here's your second motor here, and again, this one controls the up and down. It goes up into a worm gearbox here, and I'm guessing there's a worm gear that engages with the big elevation screw, which is back here, that raises and lowers this thing. And looking at this screw, we may have to make a new one of these at some point in time. These threads are getting kind of thin. I think it's going to be fine to start with, but at some point in time, I may have to pull that whole screw out and just make a new one on the lathe. We'll see about that. Again, all these motor controls, I haven't done anything to try to figure out what we need to do with all this stuff to get it operational, but hopefully it won't be too much trouble. Well, there you go, guys. A quick introduction to my new toy for the shop. I'm really excited about this. This is really going to give us some additional capacity and give me the ability to do some more work. A lot of stuff we do at the museum. Something like this is going to really be helpful for some of those big jobs that we get to come in. So again, I'm really excited about this. Now, my plans for this machine, unless I'm forced to, I'm probably not going to do a tear down on this. We're just going to do a cosmetic restoration. There's really not a lot of precision ways and things like that in here that I think I'm going to have to deal with. So my plan is that we're just going to probably get in here and strip everything off, all the old paint, and give it a fresh paint job. Of course, get that column cleaned up and what have you. I think I mentioned it on the Cincinnati Bickford drill press that I'm contemplating having like a little work weekend out here sometime this fall when it cools down a little bit. It's just too dang hot to do anything out here right now. Man, the heat and humidity the last week has just been miserable. But maybe in late September, October, somewhere along in there, I can find a weekend, and if a few folks want to come out and help out in the shop for a weekend, we can have us a machine cleaning, preparation, and painting party and try to get both of these drill presses looking nice. And in the meantime, I'm going to try to mess around with the electronics on this stuff and see if we can get it fired up and get it where she'll run. And again, I'm hoping that there's nothing major that we have to tear into this. If we have to, we'll deal with that when the time comes. But I don't anticipate having to do a complete tear down type restoration on this machine. So with that, that's going to be a wrap. Thank you guys for watching as always. I hope you're as excited about my new toy as I am. And got another restoration series here, I guess, that we'll be doing down the road, getting this machine back up and running. And with that, we'll talk to you guys next time around. Thanks a lot.